It's the fluid nature of how the bass is responding to different parts of the composition in one musical idea, because the bass can kind of double anyone in the composition at any given time, and if it's ordered and arranged kind of correctly, it works. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Low End University. Jigsaw Falling Into Place is from Radiohead's 7th studio album, In Rainbows, released in 2007, and this appears to be that self-released Pay What You Want album. I remember hearing a lot of buzz about that at the time, kind of a big business experiment from the band. But listen, I've had a lot of requests for this track, but they were very early on in the channel. We have a lot of heavy stuff coming up, so I wanted to mix it up with something way different. I was never really into this band, and really that side of the rock scene. I do remember hearing OK Computer. A friend let me borrow it. I remember really liking it. This was all in college, but I was so into heavy music then, I just never really went any further with the band. And it's nice sometimes for me on the channel to go back and rediscover an artist that I've put on the shelf in a past life. So I'm going to dive back in with the track I saw requested most. That is Jigsaw Falling Into Place from Radiohead. Ooh. B minor with some twists. Musically already, a lot of twists happening. And I wish I was going into this video knowing a bit more about the band. I hear them mentioned a lot. I'm a big Steven Wilson fan, Porcupine Tree. He's a big Radiohead fan. He's very vocal about it. That's, you know, the things he says about the band really hype them up to me. They've always been a band I know I needed to go back and properly appreciate. I think I remember checking out OK Computer just because it was like one of the number one rated albums ever on rateyourmusic.com, if anyone remembers that. But it's been such a long time, and I had such a stint finding heavier things that I missed this side of rock. But this has some twists and turns musically that are kind of throwing me for a loop. We're kind of hearing B minor, then it goes down a half step. A lot of these like really close together half step moves, and what's interesting is that it's not just typical major minor chords. There's some major sevens thrown in, and it sounds like the actual upper extensions of these chords they're using, like the major sevens here and there, are kind of all relative to some upcoming chords. So it's got this really interesting cyclical common tone usage of notes. We have a G major 7, this kind of sound, and then we go to half step down to F sharp, and then that F sharp becomes the 5th of B minor. Then we go to that B flat thing. I think that's major, but then the 3rd of B flat is now that D. So as weird as those chords sound, they share a lot of notes. It gives it this really kind of smooth sound that you don't really know when it's changing chords. A lot to dissect there. And already my bass tone is definitely going to be way too trebly for this. So let me go to like a softer tone. Let's keep it rolling. Yeah, that's dreamy.
Just as you take my hand, just as you write my number down, just as the drinks arrive, just as they play your favorite song, as your bladder disappears. No one will wind up like a spring before you had too much. Come back and focus again. The walls have been in shade. They got a Cheshire cat grin, all blurring into one.
You know, the more I listen to this, that kind of secondary vocal, that sounds a bit familiar. High chance I've heard this out in the wild somewhere. Nothing else about it sounds familiar, but I'm going to comment on the interesting kind of priority here in the mix. So we have a main lead vocal that's kind of softer, more
As you're about to disappear,
kind of spoken wordish in a way.
no one will wind up like a spring.
I mean, it's melodic and it's hitting notes and stuff, but it's got the delivery is kind of this more talking approach. Then you have this really melodic vocal track that's void of any words. You have the bass kind of locking in with the drums. And what I find interesting is that the guitar part that was so prominently introduced and all of its kind of complexity is kind of the quietest thing now. I would argue that that secondary vocal track is actually kind of driving the chord more than the guitar part is. Because in my ears, I kind of hear the guitar moving, kind of with this jangly kind of trebly clickiness, but it's quieter and it's become this kind of background layer. I find that really interesting, that now the chord tones are kind of being driven by bass and maybe that secondary vocal track. So kind of diving into the nuances here, but hear it again, you'll see what I'm talking about. The guitar is fainter than I thought it would be.
Just as you take my hand,
I mean, it's there, but it's like way over here.
Just as they play your favorite song, as you're about to disappear, no one will wind up like a spring.
And right there, I like how the bass and the vocals are kind of duetting a bit. I wouldn't say the vocals are following the bass. I would say the bass is kind of following that vocal melody. And it's already moving around quite a bit. We have some straighter parts. Little upbeat play. But right here, you'll notice how the lead vocal track, and the bass are kind of in unison for a second.
Your favorite song is you're about to disappear. No one will wind up like a spring.
Yeah. That kind of thing. Little clever stuff. Okay. I'll let it go for a bit.
Focus again. The walls have been in shape. We got a Cheshire cat grin, all blurring into one. This place is on a mission before the night out. Before the animal noises close to get killers. Before you come.
Now the guitar is like really prominent in the mix. I don't think that was just an accidental thing. Something intentional about that. Now I can hear it really prominently, like more of the notes have kind of blossomed out of the mix as the vocals go away. Just very interesting. Little melody they're kind of bringing in. That kind of little thing there.
Between the notes, the beat goes round and round. The beat goes round and really got me. I just pretended that I am.
Right there again, another bass and vocal, just in unison for a couple beats. It kind of, you're listening for the vocal melody. That's typically where your attention is drawn in a song. And it kind of just pulls it to the bass for a second. I love the effect of that. They're not together in unison too long to where it's like, okay, that's a thing. But just those little matchups for just a second have a really particular way of bringing your attention to something else in the composition. Just smart part writing. And it almost feels like a bit of an improvised quality. Not sure on that. But a lot of requests had asked me to really dive into what Colin Greenwood here is doing on bass. I've seen that name come up a lot, and there's some really interesting stuff I'll get to in a second. Let me let this section play out, but those little bits of unison are catching me. Right here. Like it. You know, something I got to say too is the song has gotten way more intense without me really feeling a conscious buildup. They've snuck in more layers up here on the harmonies. It's got this ethereal kind of falsetto thing happening now. I almost feel like the tempo has gone up a little bit. I don't want to go back and keep rewinding, but I'm listening. I'm going, this is way more intense than we were a minute ago, but it didn't, you never had this conscious like, boom, it's getting big. It's this gradual slow burn. Really interested in just the art of layering here on this song. Yeah. Back to that B flat. Okay, I want to say here, maybe a bridge section, vocals have stopped. Talked a lot about how the bass is kind of unifying with the vocals, but the more I listen to his bass grooves happening, they kind of have not a ton of repetitive parts. I hear some themes being played, and it might just be, you know, a larger phrase, 16 bars or something he's repeating. I'm not really talking about that. It's the fluid nature of how the bass is responding to different parts of the composition in one musical idea. I talk a lot about this concept in tons of my videos. The bass has the most creative freedom. Why? Because the bass can kind of double anyone in the composition at any given time, and if it's ordered and arranged kind of correctly, it works. You can't say that about every other instrument. So what I mean here is that in a 2-bar phrase, he's kind of locking in with the kick drum. That kind of thing. And then for a second, at the end of a phrase, he'll kind of catch that vocal melody. And then he'll kind of go back and play more of that drawn out sustained part like a guitar would play. Kind of longer. Hit the kick drum for a second. I don't know exactly what he's playing. I'm just kind of making an example. Point is, I've kind of cycled through vocal, drums, guitar part, and it all sounds like a cohesive bass line. And the more I listen, he's kind of triangulating who he kind of supports and elevates, and it's just for these brief moments. In a way of what I'm saying is that he's responding really in the moment, kind of reacting to the composition. And I could say the same. I remember saying this about the Sublime bass player, Eric Wilson. Same kind of thing. It's just kind of reacting to the composition in real time. And as a bass player, you just got to love that that's possible, but it still sounds like a really well thought out part. Whether this had an improvised nature or whether it was really thought out, nonetheless, it all works. And if you listen to the rest of the song, I'm sure he's going to keep doing it. He latches onto different parts throughout the song. And it just highlights how damn cool the bass is in music. I can't nerd out enough about that fact. Okay. I think I was a little more over here. Kind of a fun one to try to jump in and jam with. Wow, first time I've really listened to Radiohead in a very long time. So, Radiohead's a band that I don't think I ever properly understood and probably didn't give them a chance on that reason alone. Like many people, I kind of generalized the band here in Creep. That was, again, ubiquitous. I remember that coming out on Rock Band or Guitar Hero as one of the core songs. And it just sounded like a well written radio kind of alt rock song. Later, I get into Porcupine Tree, Steven Wilson. Steven Wilson's very vocal of his love for Radiohead and his intrigue about the band and how they confront their fans' expectations and are always flipping things on its head. And coming into this track, I'm kind of glued into more of what he's talking about. The song kind of going in a direction you don't really think it's going to go, some subtleties, the really genius use of arranging and layering. And it's a band I think just later in life I would probably appreciate a lot more. But that song seemed like a really specific snapshot within a larger picture, like some albums and songs are. I need to get back into this band properly. I liked what I heard. It's not my favorite genre of rock, but I can appreciate the dynamic gentleness. And again, the subtleties. And a really good example of why the bass is just so damn cool. Lining up with the vocals, kind of having this ad-libbed feel where it's kind of going between more rhythmic and more harmonic with the guitar, and just being that glue and then stepping out every now and then to catch other things in the layers. Great bass performance. Had a really nimble kind of ad-libbed improv feel that, I don't know, gave the song some bounce. But again, I can't make a generalization on this band. I need to hear more. But thanks to all of you who have requested this song. This one's been on my list easily about 2 years now. But thank you guys for hanging out with me today. If you'd like to support the channel further, please come find us on Patreon. I do full albums over there. I have bass lessons if you're a player, and much more. And if you enjoyed this, please make sure you're subscribed. I love you all. We'll see you in the next one.